Breaking tonight, we are exactly 24 hours away from what could prove to be the most important night of the 2016 election, as Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump square off in the first presidential debate. Oh my goodness, it's happening. A debate that is largely expected to break records, potentially becoming the most watched political event of all time. Welcome to a special live Sunday edition of the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. At this time tomorrow, the candidates will be on stage, and the outcome of this race could hang in the balance. A brand new ABC News Washington Post poll today finds Hillary Clinton leading Donald Trump by just 2 points now, 49 to 47. That's within the margin of error. Earlier this month, this same poll had her up by 8 points. And this poll is almost a mirror image of the latest Real Clear Politics average of polls, which has Mrs. Clinton up by 2.5%. This race is tightening. As for what viewers can expect to see tomorrow night, the 90-minute debate on this stage you're seeing right here at Long Island's Hofstra University will be divided into 6 segments. There will be no breaks. NBC's Lester Holt will moderate. He has chosen the topics in no particular order. Here they are: America's direction, achieving prosperity, and securing America. We're told the topics could change based on breaking news. Back here in New York, we have a big show lined up for you tonight. This is the last time we get to talk to you until the debate has happened. So we're looking forward to the preview tonight. In moments, we'll speak with Republican National Committee Chairman Reince Priebus, who has been with Donald Trump as he prepares for the debate, including this weekend. Charles Krauthammer is here on the advice he has for the candidates. And we'll speak with Stuart Stevens, who helped engineer Mitt Romney's very memorable first debate performance against President Obama in 2012. But we begin the night with our chief political correspondent, campaign Carl Cameron, who's reporting live from Trump Tower in New York City. So, Carl, the candidates have been behind closed doors, but the fighting has hardly died down.
Oh, no, it's getting hotter and hotter by the moment. Both of the candidates, Trump and Clinton, actually had separate meetings with Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu here in New York City today. Apart from that, and they each want to be president, they got just about nothing in common, and they couldn't be more diametrically opposed candidates as they face off tomorrow night. And it has already been filled with trash talk. It started last week when the Clinton campaign suggested that they were going to have in the front row Mark Cuban, the billionaire former TV reality star and the owner of the Dallas Mavericks NBA team, in the front row, basically to try to distract and irritate Donald Trump. They've been in a bit of a feud for the last several months. That prompted Cuban to send an email, a tweet out saying that, yes, he'd be willing to show up. And Trump followed that by saying that, well, if that were the case, that he would then bring in Gennifer Flowers, who back in the 90s acknowledged having had a sexual relationship with then Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton as he was running for president. He denied it for a couple of years and then ultimately admitted it under oath during the Ken Starr investigation. And she then tweeted and said yes, and let it be known through an assistant that she too would be willing to come. It turns out that that's not going to happen, but they are already going to Gennifer Flowers and back and forth with that sort of a tone. It's going to be very difficult for both of the candidates to do what their aides say they intend to do: be presidential and show that they're ready to fulfill the highest office and arguably not only in the nation but in the world, when they've already sort of laid the foreground, the preface to all of this, with name calling and stuff that has very little to do with what the American voters seem interested in. Megyn?
Carl, thank you. Well, much has been made in the media about which Donald Trump will show up at tomorrow night's debate. Will it be the more subdued Donald Trump of late, or the man who treated us to debate moments like these?
Raise your hand now if you won't make that pledge tonight. Mr. Trump.
I think you're on the wrong side of this if you're still arguing for a single payer.
I don't think you heard me. You're having a hard time tonight.
All right,
I have never gone bankrupt, by the way. I have never. But out of hundreds of deals,
but sir,
excuse me,
that's your line, but your companies have gone bankrupt.
I think women all over this country heard very clearly what Mr. Trump said.
I think she's got a beautiful face, and I think she's a beautiful woman.
The one guy that had some special interest that I know of that tried to get me to change my views on something that was generous and gave me money was Donald Trump. He wanted casino gambling in Florida.
I didn't want it.
Yes, you did.
Totally false.
You wanted it, and you didn't get it because I was opposed to casino gambling before.
I promise, lying guy up here. You're the one. You're the one.
Release the
You're
tape.
the one. Now, let
Why
me just
are you-
tell you.
what
Let
are
me
you
just
hiding
say,
in the
excuse
tape?
me. Given my answer, Lion Ted, I've given my answer.
What
All
are
right,
you
let's leave it
hiding?
at that.
He hit my hands. Nobody has ever hit my hands. I've never heard of this one. Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee.
Oh, boy. Joining us now, Reince Priebus, chairman of the Republican National Committee. As we mentioned, he's been with Donald Trump during his debate preparations. Great to see you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start with this. How have you seen him recently?
Yep.
Today?
This afternoon, sure.
Okay, how is he?
He's great. I mean, he's relaxed. He's doing well.
Come on, he's a little nervous. He's only human.
He's really not. He's not nervous. But he's getting ready, and I think he's going to be
How? What can
really
you tell us about it?
Look, he's studying. He's going through the issues. He's got a good team there, and we're going through particular questions that might come up, and he's handling it, and he's been working on it. It's not like it's something that, just happened the last couple of days. Has been.
Does he stand behind a lectern when he does the prep?
Sometimes he does. Sometimes he doesn't.
Do you throw the meanest, most obscene
Sometimes.
questions you can think of at him?
Sometimes we do, and sometimes we just go through policy. It just depends on the day and what's on the schedule.
How many people does he allow in there? I mean, because too much information can be a bad thing.
Sure. I mean, I don't even know what the number is. I've never really done a head count, but I need to say this: the team is very well prepared. The right people are in the room. And I can tell you that Donald Trump's head is in this thing, and he's been consistent, and he's been working hard, and he's got a really good attitude about it. But I can tell you, it's not like he's sitting around wringing his hands nervous. He's pretty calm, cool, and collected.
It'll happen tomorrow night because he is a human being.
It is.
She is a human being. We like to think they're not when they run for president, but they are. And you cannot help but get nervous. Even somebody like me who's in front of millions of people every night.
Right.
Before those presidential debates, your heart starts pumping a little faster.
Right. And, but here's the thing. I mean, Hillary Clinton's been doing this for almost 3 decades. She's going to be held to a pretty high standard tomorrow night. The detail, all the things that she's been, she's lived her life around the legislative process. So Donald Trump's an outsider, and they both have different things that I think they need to accomplish. And I think, the burden's going to be on her in a pretty big way.
What of this question, which Donald Trump is showing up? Is it going to be the more subdued Trump, or do you think he's going to be on the attack?
I think if you look at the last few weeks, Megan, you've seen a very measured, on-message Donald Trump who's been doing a fabulous job in laying out policy. Something
but a lot
that
of
isn't covered.
teleprompter involved in that. And the question is whether, without the prompter, with this, opponent needling, we're going to see the same guy, or we're going to see the Lion Ted, little Marco, look at my hands guy.
No, I don't think so. I think you're going to see someone who's ready to be president of the United States. That's the Donald Trump that I've seen over the last several weeks. Somebody, I think, that has really focused in on the general election. I think sometimes, too, you go from a primary, and, the clips were a fond reminder of our primary debates. It's pretty wild stuff. And I think going
more fun
from
for some than others.
Right, I understand. But you go from that to the general election, and also the gravity of the presidency, and that facing you down in the next, 46 days. I think that has really come to light to Donald Trump, and I think he gets that.
So speaking of the gravity of the presidency, what of this dust-up about Mark Cuban? She started it by saying she was going to put Mark Cuban in the front row to, sort of antagonize him a bit. And he responded by saying, great, let's do that. I'll put Jennifer Flowers in there. So, and Jennifer Flowers has said she wants to show up. Is she showing up to the debate?
She's not showing up through a ticket of our campaign, I can tell you that.
Okay, so she's not going to be in the front row.
But here's the thing. They got cute. And then, of course, Mark Cuban got pretty smart on Twitter and started needling the campaign. And so this is a brushback. And, it wasn't just like, oh, we'll invite Mark Cuban. It was, we're going to invite Mark Cuban. He's going to play games. And so the campaign brushed him back. And I think they did a good job brushing him back. And so...
Is there any limitation on that sort of mind game that they can play with each other, with their guests?
Well, look, but here's what I think is going on, and I don't have total clarity on this, but I think that the Committee on Presidential Debates has made it clear that we're not going to have these kind of shenanigans in the front row, in the screenshot tomorrow night. I don't know exactly what the process is going to be for making sure that that doesn't happen. Obviously, family members are going to be in those prime spots, but certainly, some kind of oddball scenario I don't think is going to be allowed by the debate commission. I think each side, each campaign is going to have some sort of say over who's in that screenshot outside of family.
Okay,
of course.
so she could exercise a veto right over Kathleen Willey or Jennifer Flowers.
Something like that. I don't
Broderick.
want to get too far in the weeds, but I do believe the debate commission is handling this issue, and I think doing it the right way. And unfortunately, Hillary Clinton played this card a few days ago to put us in this situation that we're in.
I have this to say to the Presidential Debate Commission. Welcome to our world. It's been this way for a long time, just unexpected, unprecedented debates and excitement and surprises. So that's what we expect tomorrow night.
It's going to be a great night, I think, and Donald Trump is ready.
Are you nervous? You're a little nervous.
I'm a little
You're human,
nervous,
too.
sure. I mean, but, you know, obviously the candidates are the ones that are really in the hot seat. And
Yeah. Could this debate change the race?
I think it can. I mean, I think, you know, look, we have a change candidate, and we have someone that's done this for a long, long time, and it's a change electorate. But anytime you have a change electorate, you're always measuring risk versus change. How much risk will I take to make the change? And I think the last few weeks have been great for Donald Trump, and if he continues the approach he's on, which I think he will, and we're proud of what he's been doing, I think he's going to have a great night, and I think it's going to be harder and harder for Hillary. 90
minutes, Hofstra, tomorrow night. This time tomorrow, 24 hours from now, we'll all be watching it. And we'll be watching Ryan's to see if we can see the sweat. Great to see you. Thanks for being here. Well, for 16 years, Stuart Stevens has been helping people like George W. Bush and Mitt Romney prepare for the most important debates of their careers. He's here next to tell us what he thinks could win the night tomorrow. Plus, some last-minute candidate advice from one of the smartest political observers in the country, Charles Krauthammer, also here right after this quick break. Don't go away. Breaking tonight with less than 24 hours to go until a New York businessman squares off against an opponent with formidable debate experience. We are reminded that this situation is similar to 2012, when Mitt Romney faced a seasoned President Obama for the first time. In that meeting, Romney had a wildly successful night. And here are a couple of moments that made headlines. Watch.
And congratulations to you, Mr. President, on your anniversary. I'm sure this was the most romantic place you could imagine, here with me. So congratulations. Look, I got 5 boys. I'm used to people saying something that's not always true, but just keep on repeating it and ultimately hoping I'll believe it. But that is not the case, all right? I will not reduce the taxes paid by high-income Americans. What things would I cut from spending? First of all, I will eliminate all programs by this test if they don't pass it. Is the program so critical it's worth borrowing money from China to pay for it? And if not, I'll get rid of it. Obamacare is on my list. I apologize, Mr. President. Mr. President, you're entitled as a president to your own airplane and to your own house, but not to your own facts.
In just a minute, we are going to get Charles Krauthammer's last-minute words of wisdom for the candidates. But first, the man responsible for helping to orchestrate Mitt Romney's 2012 performance, Stu Stevens, founding partner of Strategic Partners and Media. Stu, great to see you. And that was such a night for Mitt Romney. He was just on fire, on point, on message. Even Team Obama was just stunned by how he beat him. He beat him in every corner, and President Obama came back hard in the later debates. But let's start with Hillary. How can Hillary Clinton have a night like that?
Well, first, I just want to say I was a very small part of a
I know, you're sweet. You're a cog in the wheel,
debate team. And ultimately, this is always up to the candidates. Mitt Romney's just a really great debater. Yeah. I think there's 2 questions that they would be facing in the Clinton campaign. Should they try to make her more likable, or should they try to prosecute Donald Trump? I would come down on prosecute Donald Trump, because I think that she needs to show strength. I think that if she doesn't, people will be asking why she didn't. But they could come down both ways. It's a very different set of challenges for Donald Trump as well.
Let's get to him 1 second. But you have a column out saying she should get in his face and stay in his face. I'd put him in the pain locker and shake it around. You think she should attack, 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 and attack some more. Doesn't she have to worry about people saying, you know, they'll use sexist terms like she's a shrew, she's shrill?
You know, that's a decision they have to make. But if I was there, I wouldn't worry about likability. I would say go out and do what no one has ever done for 90 minutes, which is challenge Donald Trump, and challenge him consistently and run it, what we would call in football, a fast-paced offense. I'd go right at him at the first question, I'd go at him at the second question, I'd go at him at the last question. And I'd worry about likability later. But they may very well make a different choice.
I remember a couple moments where he was challenged in some presidential debates, but, you know, we'll leave that for the audience
But
to
not
decide.
for 90 minutes.
Right, perhaps not that long. And in the primary debates, the field was so, you know, dense that only so much time could be devoted to any one candidate. Let's talk about him. So let's put on the I like Donald Trump hat, which I know you don't. And what would you advise him to do to win tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think he has three clear goals. He needs to show maturity, gravitas, and knowledge. He needs to get over a threshold that people can imagine him as being president. That's not particularly unusual for a first presidential debate. Then Governor Bush really didn't pass that test until the first presidential debate with Vice President Gore. It is a very different set of demands than he faced in the primary. If I was advising Donald Trump, I would really stay away from attacking Hillary Clinton. I would talk about my vision for the country, what I would do, and I think he has to show that he has a lot of knowledge that people question if he has, and I think he could surprise people if he does show that.
How do you think he can do it? The infamous counter-puncher. Do you think he could take punch after punch after punch after punch after punch for 90 minutes and not respond?
I have no idea. In all likelihood, there'll be several debates within this 90-minute debate. They'll have different rhythms and different momentums and different attack strategies at one moment. That's why I think consistency on the part of Hillary Clinton would be best, and not let the debate drift. It will be up to Donald Trump. The one thing you control in a debate is what you say, and no one can make you say anything you don't want to say. And that seems like a simplistic thing to say, but it's very difficult for some candidates to realize. They don't have to answer a question directly.
Right.
They can say anything they want for that allotted time.
It's not a courtroom. No. Stuart, great to see you.
Great to see you.
Joining me now with more, Charles Krauthammer, syndicated columnist and Fox News contributor. Charles, okay, so you have Trump sitting in front of you. What's the core message you want to tell him about how to behave tomorrow night?
Well, between now and tomorrow night, decaf only. Don't talk about your hands. And in the end, think of yourself in the press conference with the president of Mexico. Your job in this debate is to make people look at you and think you're a plausible president. They're not going to care about any details, and they won't appreciate snarkiness or disrespect. It was sort of a fun thing in a circus of 15 candidates. It's not the same in a one-on-one. So his goal is not to win on points, is not to win on substance. It's to show himself to be calm. And one obvious thing to do, I mean, all of this is obvious, is if anything else that we can say that's mildly original about the debate tomorrow, I doubt it, but it is to not shout, to keep your voice in sort of modulated in a way that you did when you were standing there with a head of state. You're with a Secretary of State, show that you can stand there and be her equal.
Well, the good thing for Trump is, amazingly, the man does not drink alcohol or caffeine. He does not drink coffee. I don't know how he does it.
He's off on the right foot.
Okay, let's talk about her. So don't shout. I'm going to guess your advice to her is going to begin with that as well, given what we saw this week with the, why aren't I 50 points? Oh, they have it. This is always fun, so let's watch.
Now, having said all this, why aren't I 50 points ahead, you might ask? Well, the choice for working families has never been clearer. I need your help to get Donald Trump's record out to everybody. Nobody should be fooled.
I always know how it goes over with America by how it goes over here with the crew, and the guys out here are going like this. Go ahead, Charles.
It's like a Saturday Night Live parody. Look, I think what she needs to do is to jab, not to go for the haymaker, not to go for the one thing that's going to knock him out. He's very good at rope-a-dope, at slipping away. See, all the metaphors are boxing, because this really is a spectacle of boxing. But I think if she keeps jabbing at him, she wants to find, and what she needs to do is the flurries. In other words, to attack him on many points, calmly, but one after another. I'm sure that at some point he's going to succumb and want to strike back, and that's her opportunity. Look, these debates are never won or lost on points. If you listen on the radio, you never get a flavor of who won or who lost. It's only by watching. The debates in the end are dependent on moments. She needs the one moment where she hits him somewhere where either he's defensive because he's being sort of portrayed as ignorant or being wild. All he has to do, remember, all those ads she ran, is essentially saying he's Dr. Strangelove. He needs to do something very simple. Show himself as reasonably normal, which for most of us is rather doable. Can he do it for 90 minutes? We will find out.
Do you believe, given all that the debate has the potential to be boring? That she's going to go out there and say, I'm not taking any risks. I'm 2 points. It's tight, but I'm 2 points ahead. And he's going to say, slow and steady wins the race. I'm surging by being presidential. This isn't the place for risks. Give a nice, pat, boring answer. 90 minutes. We're on.
Boring, he wins. He needs to be boring. She's running an entire campaign on saying this is the scariest guy, unfit, out of control, who knows what he'll do tomorrow. If he can be up there for 90 minutes and be dull, he wins the debate.
I'm excited to see them be dull. I don't care. I want to watch the whole thing. I want to see all the, you can see the, the wheels turning, right? The little hamster running on the wheel as Lester asks the question. And then, Charles, it's great to see you.
My pleasure.
Will you be watching? I feel like the entire country is going to be watching this thing, right? Everybody I know, everybody today was asking me about it. Everybody. So there's always the debate wild card that you can't see coming or you don't see coming. And tomorrow night it could involve either one of two controversial stories breaking this weekend. We've got our power panel up next of Mark Thiessen, Mo Elleithee, and Howard Kurtz on that. Here they are. With less than 24 hours to go until Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton's very first debate against one another, we are continuing our expert analysis with former Bush speechwriter Mark Thiessen, former DNC spokesman Mo Elleithee, and Fox's own Howard Kurtz. And tonight we'll be asking them about two breaking news stories this weekend that could prove to be wild cards in this debate. One involves race, the other involves a possible terror attack. In Washington state on Friday, a gunman walked into a Macy's shopping store, shooting dead 5 people before being apprehended some 24 hours later. And while initial reports suggested this may simply have been a disturbed individual, there are now some suggestions from lawmakers that a potential terror link might not be out of the question. On top of that, we also watched this weekend as police in Charlotte released the long-awaited videos of the Keith Scott shooting from the perspective of responding officers. And with each side already spinning these videos to support their respective narratives, the issues of race and policing seem almost certain to come up in tomorrow's debate. Our panel in a moment, but first to Steve Harrigan in Charlotte, North Carolina. Steve?
Megan, for the past 3 nights here, we've seen more protests, but those protests have largely been peaceful. 400 or 500 people out marching for 3 or 4 hours at a time. No violence, no property destruction, very few arrests. There were concerns today at the NFL game here at 1 o'clock today that there might have been attempts to disturb that game. That didn't happen. Just 100 protesters showed up for that event. They were quickly surrounded by riot police there. The real event this weekend has been the release of police tapes. Police released 2 bits of video at officer-involved shooting, one involving a body camera from an officer who did not fire the shots. The second, more detailed video from a dash cam. That video shows 43-year-old Keith Scott taking several steps away from his SUV. His hands are at his side. It actually shows the shots being fired, 4 shots, you can hear them, and then Scott hits the ground. What you can't tell from that videotape is whether Scott had a gun in his hands at the time. There were real concerns that the release of that police video could spark more protests here. That simply has not happened yet. The police chief said the video is inconclusive. Even family members for the Scott family have said these videotapes raise more questions than they answer. It's still a nervous mood here on the street in downtown Charlotte. A lot of businesses either boarding up or shutting early. At least this merchant here has allowed local artists to paint on those boards to try to make things a little less gloomy on this corner of Charlotte. Megan, back to you.
Steve Harrigan, still in Charlotte. Good to see you, Steve. Joining me now, Mark Thiessen, an American Enterprise Institute scholar and Fox News contributor. Mo Elleithee, founding executive director of the Georgetown University Institute of Politics and Public Service, and Howard Kurtz, host of Fox News Media Buzz. Great to see you all.
Great to see you, Megan.
Let me start with you, Mo, as a campaign guy who does this or has for many years for a living. With the polls tightening now, and she's only got this 2-point lead where she used to have, over 6, almost a 7-point in the Real Clear Politics average. What does she need to do tomorrow?
I think she ought to do two things. One, and I agree with Stu Stevens in your last segment, who said that she ought to prosecute Donald Trump, right? She wants people to walk away from this debate really wondering whether or not this is the guy you want to entrust the nuclear codes to. But I do think she also needs to make a positive case for herself, right? She's got to go out there and push her own message of why she is the person that people can turn to as their champion to help level the playing field for them. That's not an easy thing to do, right, in a debate, to make sure both those things come across in almost every single answer. But I think that's the line that she ought to try to walk. Because I don't think one or the other is going to do it, and I think that's true for both candidates.
Mark, I know you say the number one thing they need to avoid is is not so much land a blow, but avoid a gaffe.
Yes, avoid landing a blow on yourself. So if you look back at the 2004 presidential debates, where everybody gave it to John Kerry, when commentators, even the polls showed that John Kerry won. But what John Kerry did, he lost because he was the only candidate who had a gaffe that continued on after the election, when he said we need a global test to see whether we're going to defend ourselves in the war on terror. Bush put out an ad on it. It became a campaign sub-speech. He was out there defending himself on it. So even though he won on points, and even though people said he was, by Oxford rules, the better debater, he lost because he said something that carried on, that gave ammunition to his opponent. And so if the candidate tomorrow night who does that will be the one who loses the debate.
You know, we're talking about the breaking news here, Howie, and both of those issues are dicey for these presidential candidates. Terror, the American public, to some extent, is concerned about its safety, and some of them really like the tough talk that Donald Trump has offered on this, and so there's some risk there for Hillary Clinton. But on policing and race in America, Donald Trump needs more minority voters, and so if he goes too hard line, there's risk in that for him too.
There are landmines on both sides, no question. But look at what's in the ether. We're just talking about the last week here. We've just seen the police video out of Charlotte of Keith Scott being killed. It was only last weekend that we had the bombings in New York and New Jersey, and the two fatal police shootings, the other one being in Oklahoma. I think in a time of anxiety and fear, and this is 100,000 times more important than when the Jennifer Flowers shows up.
Although that's also really interesting.
It's really. I mentioned
it
it
is.
today. Yeah, but Donald Trump is running as the outsider who would promise big change. Hillary Clinton is tied to the Obama administration. Now, she can say she has more experience in the Situation Room dealing with things like terrorism, but when you're running for a third term for your party, it's harder to promise the kind of change. Now, Donald Trump tends to overpromise. I'm going to end crime. I'm going to wipe out African-American poverty, but he's selling
But those
strength.
sweeping statements resonate with people. They're easy to remember. They walk away. What does Donald Trump stand for? Making America great again. What does she stand for? Stronger together. What does that mean? I don't know.
She's got a million position papers. Donald Trump has themes, and that helps him.
But nobody looks at the position papers. They want to see and hear from the candidate themselves. And you tell me, Mo, whether all these folks who thought she had this sewn up after the huge surge she had following her convention are now really worried about what's going to happen on the stage tomorrow night.
Yeah, and I think, if you talk to people in the Clinton campaign, they'll tell you that they actually never believed that they were that far ahead, that this race was going to settle a little bit after the initial post-convention bumps were over. But look, I agree with Howie in the sense that when you've got these types of big national moments like we've seen over the past week or so, it tends to benefit the outsider. But maybe not in this election, right? Because if you believe the polls, too many people right now have real questions about Donald Trump's temperament, his ability to stand up and deal with these big moments. Is he the guy I really want with the nuclear codes?
She is winning on terrorism right now. I actually had seen one poll that showed him ahead of her by 1 point. And then we took a closer look, and she was ahead of him in 5 other polls.
And that's unprecedented, right? Usually whoever has the R next to their name, right? It comes out ahead.
They always win.
I mean, it's just sort of baked in. If you've got the R next to your name, you're seen as stronger on terror just out of the box. That's a very dangerous place for him to be in when in this type of an environment.
What do you make of it, though, Mark? Because what they're saying is that even though people like us get all ginned up about these debates and we can't wait, and maybe she'll win, maybe he'll win, they say that ultimately the viewers and the voters use them just to confirm their own pre-existing opinions, and when a couple of weeks have passed, they won't have changed the race.
I think they will change the race in this particular case. I mean, this is an election where we have the two least popular, least liked candidates in modern political history. And so people are really trying to decide, can I vote for Hillary Clinton?
Who do I hate less?
Who do I hate less? And it's an unprecedented question going into a debate, is who do I hate less rather than will my candidate do well? So I think Donald Trump has to, tomorrow night, he has to go out and be presidential. You've got all the dynamics are working in his favor. There's violence, there's chaos. It seems like Obama's America is spinning out of control. And Donald Trump is the candidate of law and order. He's also approached these remember when he went to Wisconsin and gave that speech after the riots in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, he gave a very temperament statement after the Charlotte riots, saying that he's going to make America safe for African Americans, and we all have to come together. If he takes that approach tomorrow night and looks presidential, with all the dynamics happening in the country right now, I think he's got a good chance of winning.
In almost every campaign since Reagan in 1980, you're right, the debates suddenly end up being a wash despite all the hype. This could be different because of Donald Trump's unique outsider status.
What about the pressure on poor Lester Holt? I mean, not poor Lester, because it's a great opportunity, but man, they are working the refs. Both sides are really working the refs. He's got to fact-check everything. He better be on top of Mr. Trump. And Hillary's got to use her time to bring her positive message. So Lester needs to be the one to fact-check. Like, oh my, really?
All right, I'm going to make a prediction here. There is no way, as good a newsman as Lester Holt is, that he will make everybody happy. We are in such a hyper-partisan era that he's going to get hammered from both sides. Why didn't you ask this? And what about that? And you didn't follow up here. He's just got to do his job and ignore that kind of thing. But it tells you something about the state of American politics today. Donald Trump's already said Lester and the others are going to be unfair. But, you know, good moderators just kind of, you have some experience with that.
Well, you just remember this. You just remember this. When you're doing the debate, and you hear the candidate say something that you know you want to fact check or you want to follow up on, every follow-up is at the expense of another question you have gone over and you love.
Right.
And you want to hit them with. So you have to ask yourself whether that follow-up is worth the sacrifice of the zinger you have coming up in the next section. And sometimes that's what drives the decision. Like, I know that there's a follow-up there, but it's just not worth it.
The clock is
that
ticking.
moment is not going to be powerful
90
enough.
minutes with 2 people. Not 19 people.
Yeah.
So there's a better chance to get those all in.
It's so amplified, right? It's so amplified right now in the age of Twitter, where the narrative will be done 10 minutes into the debate.
Absolutely. That's right. Great to see you all.
Thanks,
To
Megan.
be continued. Up next, we'll take a look at what's being called the Clinton campaign's attempt to spin the media ahead of tomorrow's debate with Trump campaign spokesperson Katrina Pearson and Democratic strategist Robert Zimmerman. Don't go away.
From the world headquarters of Fox News, it's The Kelly File with Megyn Kelly.
Breaking tonight, less than 24 hours until Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump face off on the same stage for the first time in this campaign. And the Clinton campaign is making a last-minute push to pressure the debate moderator and the media, pushing them very hard to take a look at what they call Trump's, quote, debunked lies. The campaign putting out this memo detailing independent fact checks of Trump's statements. Joining me now to discuss it, Katrina Pearson, who's a Trump campaign national spokesperson, and Robert Zimmerman, who's a Democratic strategist who was invited by the Clinton campaign to attend tomorrow's debate. Great to see you both.
Good to be with you.
So I understand some fact-checking pressure on the moderator. You know, I mean, if Trump says, like, he never opposed the Iraq War, yes, you follow up with, well, you did tell Howard Stern. But she wants the media, Lester Holt, to interject if Trump says she wants to eliminate the Second Amendment. I would say that is his argument. That's argument which he's free to make.
Megan, let's put this in perspective. First and foremost, Donald Trump has been the one who's been playing the refs and trying to shame the debate commission with one lie after another. This week alone, he said Lester Holt was unqualified because he was, in fact, a Democrat. Lester Holt's a Republican. And then, of course, a month ago, he said the NFL sent him a letter saying that these debates were, the dates were totally improper because no one would be watching. Well, the NFL said they never sent Donald Trump a letter. He's been attacking the moderators and really trying to play the refs, if you will. And what the Clinton campaign is arguing is they want to see some fairness in the process, because if Trump shows up sedated tomorrow, that doesn't make him presidential. It just changes everything till the tranquilizers wear off. And then we get back to the same hateful rhetoric.
Your thoughts on that?
I think this is absolutely laughable. We're talking about Hillary Clinton, someone that the Clinton campaign and even Barack Obama said she's a great debater. She has command of knowledge, foreign policy, the most qualified person to ever run for president. and now she's complaining about a debate moderator? This is insane. It's her job to call out things as she sees them, not the media. You can open up any newspaper today and see the headlines of the media calling Donald Trump a liar. This is something he's been through since the beginning of his race. She is lowering expectations for her own performance. That's what's happening.
It's almost like she's just objecting to the candidate against whom she's running. You know, that Trump doesn't always have a firm foothold in the facts, and she doesn't like it. But of course, she's the one who's got the record low ratings on honesty and trustworthiness.
Excuse me, a record, not a firm foothold on the facts. Donald Trump was rated Liar of the Year by the Pulitzer Prize-winning Politico that is fact-checking.
But the American public rated her the least trustworthy.
Actually, if you look at the polling, including the ABC News Washington Post polling, they're roughly running the same in terms of favorables and unfavorables. But if you look at who's going to stand up for the middle class, who do you trust in an international crisis, that's where Hillary Clinton's beating Donald Trump solidly.
The point is, do you really think it's Lester Holt's job just to interject to Hillary Clinton over and over and over again on the emails to challenge everything she's saying, or is that Donald Trump's job?
Hillary Clinton cannot handle Lester Holt. She cannot handle ISIS.
That's not the question at all, Katrina.
This is the problem. Hillary Clinton is the one that was caught lying about the emails, lying about national security, lying under oath to Congress, not Donald Trump. Yes, Mr. Trump does have unfavorables, but they're for very different reasons.
Those are the kinds of statements that make the Trump campaign the most dishonest of this presidential cycle.
I got to go, but I have to ask you this, because you know Hillary, and you spend time with her, and you're going to be there tomorrow night. We've been asking everybody which Trump is going to show up. Which Hillary's going to show up? Do you think she's going to be on the attack?
I'll tell you what, it's the same Hillary we see every year, the same Hillary that we saw when she was certainly the first lady of the state of Arkansas, a woman who's, even a lawyer, a woman who's fighting for families, for children.
So it's going to be about her message.
It's going to be about policies and how her policies differ from Donald Trump. So when Donald Trump says that, in fact, climate change is a hoax, she's going to talk about how we have to deal with protecting the environment. When he says he knows more about ISIS than the generals, and then he wants the generals to send him a plan to deal with ISIS,
so you say
they
need to give Donald Trump a tranquilizer, and Katrina's side would say they need to give her the adrenaline that they give the horses to make sure that they don't collapse, they don't have that
allergy medicine.
And the reality is,
the thing that doesn't make keeps them healthy.
And the reality is, you can put your bet on Hillary. She'll be able to make this race.
I don't mean to laugh about that. We love horses. We love animals. I'm sorry, PETA. Okay, great to see you both.
Okay.
and also love our presidential candidates. So we have one more critical item to cover tonight, and it concerns where the polls are right now compared to past campaigns. Right? Isn't that interesting? Where was Romney and Obama versus, when the election day came? And we'll look at the polls today with Tom Bevan. Next. "44 days out, and where are we on the polls?" On this date, across the last 4 election cycles, we saw President Bush up, President Obama up in 2008 and 2012, and tonight Hillary Clinton is up by just over 2 points. Joining me now, co-founder and publisher of RealClearPolitics.com, Tom Bevan. So if you look at that, then the past indicators would say Hillary Clinton is likely to win because the people who were ahead on September 25th all went on to win. However, this is the weirdest election of anybody's lifetime.
Right. If you go back and look at the past 4 cycles, there are a couple instances where the race was close on this date and ended close, or basically the same number. We had one in 2008. Obama sort of pulled away, and that part of that was the financial crisis sort of blossomed in September, October, and really blew that race open for him. But as you said, I mean, this race feels different than any race that we've experienced in the last, 15, 20 years. And it's unprecedented to have 2 candidates who are so unliked, and the public is engaged. They're going to be watching this debate. They're going to be factoring into their decisions, and yet they still, all the data shows us that they really loathe the choice they're going to have to make.
We have 44 days left. Is that an eternity, or is that not enough time, for one of the candidates who wants to change things?
I think it's plenty of time. In this environment, again, the race is close nationally, and certainly in the Electoral College in these swing states, it's close and getting closer. So I think it's approaching a jump ball, and I think either candidate has this debate is going to be big. I think, but again, events can intervene in the next.
What do you make of that Pennsylvania poll today that shows Trump within 3 of her now? He was behind by 11.
We've seen that across the board in a lot of these states, and the question is whether, Hillary has this firewall of blue states, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Colorado. We had a poll come out in Colorado, tied race. It's a 1.5% in our Real Clear Politics average.
And she had been up 11 there.
She had, and if Donald Trump manages to win that, along with the other states that he's currently leading in, Ohio, Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, Nevada, he wins.
Tom, great to see you. Before I let you go, what's the chance that he has of winning?
It's still around 40, 45%.
Okay. Tom Bevan. We'll be right back. So you may have heard there's a debate tomorrow night. It's at 9 o'clock. You can see it right here on FNC. And then afterward at 11 p.m., there will be a live Kelly File. We will take you through everything that happened with all of your favorite guests, tell you everything you need to know. Tomorrow night, see you at 9.